Welcome to Using the Roud Indexes Part 5, brought to you by the Traditional Song Forum. This is the last in this series of tutorials about my indexes, apart from a quick summary one, which is still to come, but this is the last of the detailed ones. In this one we're going to do more advanced facilities like downloading the data for home use, using programs on your own computer like Cardbox. But first of all, there's a couple of, three small indexes that we haven't covered yet, which are on the VWML site, which we'll just briefly mention here. Now, none of these indexes will be of interest to most casual users, but for people doing more advanced search they will be useful. The first is the Bibliography Stroke discography that backs up the folk song and broadside indexes. And just for this once we won't go to search the Roud indexes only, so that's not what we're doing. We're going up to advanced search, deselect all, take away all the ticks. Then we're going down to bibliographies and authorities and the Roud bibliography. So that's the only one ticked, that's the only one that's active. Now the machine is so clever that as soon as you tick something on this side, it determines how many fields appear in this list. So far fewer than we had in our previous tutorials, so this one is easily manageable. It's a straightforward bibliography stroke discography. You have the title, you have the author, you have the printer and the publisher and all of that sort of stuff. So just to show you how it looks, we'll go to author, and we'll say Sharp, as in Cecil, although there will be other Sharps. And here we have 29 items written or produced by a Sharp. English folk carols, first book, English folk shanties, English folk songs, and so on through the list of Sharp publications. As you'd expect, if you look at it here, author, short title, that's the thing that appears on the index. Doesn't give all this details on the index, just the short title there. Place of publication, publisher and date, and if there's anything interesting, which it isn't here. Sometimes there'll be a cross-reference there, or increasingly for sound recordings like LPs and CDs, I'll go into some detail about how many tracks, when it was recorded, that sort of thing. And sometimes, if I know it, it'll be LPs reissued as cassettes or reissued as CDs. It'll give a cross-reference, that sort of thing. And down here, this long list of things, those are the items within the folk song index which are from this particular book. So you can click on any one of these and go to the entry in the index. Now it's not much use really because you can't see what it is from the number, but it does mean you can click here into the index and you can click from the index back into this bibliography. And the ID number for this entry, English folk shanties, which links the bibliography with the indexes, is up here, X5254. So all of these entries in the index, in the folk song index, will have that X5254. So you can click on that and come to this point here. But that's all we need to look at, I think, with the bibliography. So now we're going to go straight to the next of these small indexes. We're going to look at the street literature printers register, which is another of the items that I produce, which are on the Vaughan Williams site. Mentioned it before in these indexes, but printers and publishers are particularly important when it comes to looking at broadsides, chapbooks, songsters, early music publications. It's often the printer and his or her address that enables us to date the item and to therefore date the songs in that item. So this is a work in progress where we're trying to trace all the major printers, find out their addresses, find out more about them, so that we can look at their materials and also find out more about the trade itself, which is interesting in its own right and very important. So I'm searching for name equals Pitts, because John Pitts, one of the two main London printers of the first half of the 19th century. There's two John Pittses, one in Limerick, which we're not looking at. Gives a few details about him, his dates of birth and death, where he was born. But the most important for most people is this field here, printing dates. He was in operation 1802-ish to 1844. So a sheet with his name on it is going to be printed within that span, unless somebody has reprinted his material without changing the imprint, of course. So that narrows it down to a 42-year window, which is not a lot of good, but better than nothing. But further down, business addresses, is where we can say, well, he was at number 14 Great St Andrews Street from 1802 to 1819. And then he was at 6 Great St Andrews Street, 1819 to 1844. So that narrows it down to a 20-year or less window, which is a lot better than the 42 that we had earlier on. And in some cases, for some printers that either moved around a lot or were only in business for a short time, then that narrows it down a considerable amount. And we have something concrete to work with. Lots of other information about him and his work, but this kind of thing is used for successors. His business was carried on by Elizabeth Mary Ann Hodges. Now that means if you find some Hodges broadsides, you know that they might be Pitt's stock that she has inherited, or it might be Pitt's songs that she has reprinted. So the connections within the industry are important, as well as the individuals. So the last one I'm going to look at is the Roud Street Literature Bibliography, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a bibliography of materials to do with street literature, 99% books and articles. So if you're interested in the industry, in the business, if you're interested in reading about street literature, then this is the place to go to find out material. So I'll just show you briefly. So Leslie Shepherd, one of the leading scholars in this field, who died about 16 years ago. So these are books or articles written by Leslie. There's Strange and Wonderful News in the Fortean Times, article on Oldmore's Almanac, and the only thing that makes this slightly different is that if, for instance, here is his book about John Pitts. John Pitts we were talking about a moment ago. But it says in here, see also the review by Victor Newberg, because that was an important review, and then a reply by Leslie Shepherd in the journal called The Library. So there's a bit of added value there if I've managed to track down this particular conversation or whatever, because that kind of thing is often very difficult to find. So that's the last of the items that we're going to look at on the Vaughan Williams site. The rest of this tutorial will be to do with downloaded data, and the programs you can use it in. So if you're not interested in the downloaded data, then you don't need to watch any more of this particular tutorial, except for the fact if you bail out now, you'll miss the rather nice pictures at the end of broadside sellers and street singers that I've put on the end just to finish things off. So you might want to scroll forward to find those. So, as I explained in an earlier installment in this series, I put the data up on a shared drive about once every 2 or 3 months, a new version, and the data there is formatted in comma delimited format, so you can download it and put it into a database like Access or FileMaker or any other database program that you care to use. But I also format it for Excel as a spreadsheet. Here it is. Now, a lot of people like this because it's simple, it's easy to understand, and basically because they are used to using spreadsheets. But I'm not keen on it. In fact, I dislike it a lot. A spreadsheet is not a database. It can't do the things that we want it to do, and Excel in particular was designed for number crunching. You can do lots of formulas and adding things up and stuff, but for text it's limited. It has a few advantages. You can click on a column and sort very easily. There is there's find. You can find things, but that's not the same as searching. You can search or filter, but it's very clunky. And mostly, most difficult really is that with so many fields as my indexes have, and there will be more in the future, because the fields are in the columns, some fields are always way over there. So you never actually see them unless you remember to go to them. And spreadsheets were not really designed for the 280,000 records that I have in the Folksong Index alone. If you put the Folksong and Broadside indexes together, well over 500,000, 500,000 records. Now, to put all that into a spreadsheet is, to be honest, asking for trouble. So I don't recommend Excel, but I do it because that's what people want. So if it's what you want, it is there. Now, what I recommend is Cardbox. And this is Cardbox, or at least one of the formats in Cardbox. It's a free database program. All databases are tricky to start with when you start learning how to use them, and they all have their foibles, but Cardbox, you can master it pretty quickly, and once you do, it's very simple to use, and it's very powerful. Considering it's free, it is very useful indeed. So the first thing to notice is that I've got both my Folksong index, which is on that side, and the Broadside index on that side open at the same time, which you can't do on the online site or on properly in the spreadsheet and so on. And because the fields are the same, the structure is the same, I can swap data from one to the other back again easily and quickly. I can actually have other databases open. There's 20 or so that are open down here, and I can just click on one and bring it up on the screen and so on. It's very flexible from that point of view, which is very useful. I could have the bibliography open as well if I wanted to check things. But sometimes you don't want them both open, so I could minimize the Broadside one, or I can just move it out the way. Now don't worry about the colour in the Folksong index, the red and yellow. That seems to be the default Cardbox for some reason, but you can change it to any colour you want to within reason, which is what I've done with the Broadside, just so that I can remember the difference between the two of them. What you see here is a full record, and click on the right one. As you'll see, I can just scroll through one at a time, or two at a time, or I can go faster or slower. But the key, there's four things that are important, and if in databases at this sort of level, you know, we're not talking about people who can do proper coding and that sort of stuff. We're talking about ordinary people like us. 4 things that you can do, and if you can combine them like you can in Cardbox, then that's when you become an expert searcher. And they are searching, sorting, formats and tags. That's what I'm going to show you quickly. I'll start with formats. I don't understand why people don't use formats more often in databases, partly because some programs won't allow it, but that's the full record. We could make it into a list, as in all, you know, the other searching on the VWML site, but I've actually designed myself another 20 or 30 different formats that I can change to, so I can quickly click on a short format, because, you know, that suits me on that particular day or during that 5 minutes. Or I can decide that I'm really concerned at the moment with performers and places. So here we are, same record, same date, you know, same songs, but displayed in completely different ways. So let's go back to my original format for the moment. So the formats are very useful for seeing the data and working with the data. So if I wanted to do a search, I can go up to the menu and do quite complicated searches. I can do even more on the select button there. Or if I just want to do a simple search, like most of the time, all I do is right click on the field. That's it. I mean, that would have taken me 7 or 8 clicks here and there and everywhere in Excel. So I've just searched for 558, and there is 558 being Foggy Dew, as some of you will know already. So if I was looking at those performers and places and dates, so there's all the Foggy Dew versions. Now, what I didn't do, I forgot to do, but I could have clicked on it and excluded something, excluded the broadsides, for instance. So these gaps here are probably where there's broadsides, because they don't have singers or places. But having done this, I mean, that's all very well, but I then can very quickly sort by place. And here we are. Blank ones at the top, one in Australia, one in Britain, funnily enough, I didn't know I had those. Canada comes next, and then your England's, and so on, and then we should get to the Ireland and Scotland and USA. So again, a powerful way of seeing where your songs were collected. And at any given time, I've done one search, and I've searched for 558, but okay, let's just do the USA ones. Yeah, there we go. And having done the USA ones, that might be useful. That might be all the searching we need to know. We found all the American ones. They're in alphabetical order of state, and then within the state of place name. But I might prefer to put them in order of performer. So I've got all the American ones, and now there's the order of performer. And now you'll see why when we put in performers and collectors, we put the surname first. So all of that, the format and the searching and the sorting, has made my research a lot easier. I haven't shown you, but it's obvious. I can mix the fields. I can search on 2 fields. I can search for 2 or 3 words in a particular field. I can do all of that sort of thing. But the only other thing, the 4th item that I mentioned at the beginning, is tagging. And again, this is fairly unusual for domestic databases. I decide, I like that one. Oh, that one looks interesting. Yeah, that one. I don't want. Yeah, that one, and that one. Yeah, those are the ones I want. So there you go. I've selected just those. Now I could, if I clicked on the right button, so I can undo that search. T. So I've actually excluded those. So again, that gives me control over this data. Once I've done all the automatic searching, I can do some literally by hand. Mark the ones you want and exclude them or include them. And you can even say, I want to tag all of those, and then I want to exclude them. And then one other thing on back to the formats. If I wanted to, I could change to, let's call it short print. Right, the particular songs that I've selected, that's my format for printing them out or for saving them to another disk. But you can change that. You can have fields in, you can have fields out, you can have data in or data out. Right, only other thing that we're going to look at here is, if I go back to my native there, we talked about this in previous parts of these tutorials, and this is something that you can do in my indexes on the Vaughan Williams site, but you can do it here, is that when I have an attached or embedded image or sound file, you can access it immediately. So I've just done a search to find all the ones with attached images. So I can click on one. There it is. TypeScript from the Woven Plunkett collection. Or there's that one from Alfred Williams's book. Or I could search for the ones that have an embedded sound file, and you click on it and play it. Or, as I've said many times on these tutorials, look out for ones with URL attached or URL links, because 57,312 of them. You can just literally click on the link, which I won't do for the moment because the internet is working very slowly today. But you can click on those and find the item on somebody else's site at the click of a button. Right, that's the end of these tutorials, the end of this tutorial as well, so I hope you've enjoyed or learnt something from them, and as promised, I'll leave you with some nice pictures.